Hi, I'm Daniel, and I'm here to talk to you about ZHERO. ZHERO is a browser extension that is made to enhance the Zscaler administrator experience. In the last 8+ years, I've been working with a lot of Zscaler customers to deploy the solution, but mainly also to analyze the configuration and create remediation and improvement projects. In my experience, a lot of customers don't have enough time to learn to use Zscaler. So the best practices are mostly not welcome. Sometimes hidden, sometimes you need to speak with somebody from Zscaler to learn the product. It's really great, it's amazing, it's fantastic, but it's also complex because, for instance, in ZIA, you need to go through dozens of screens and configuration to understand what's really happening. So in these 8 years, I've accumulated a lot of experience, and because I'm also a developer, I created some scripts that in 5 minutes could give me some reports that usually it took me a full day to create. And also I collected a lot of best practices because I did a lot of workshops, a lot of course together, like with Zscaler CISO team and remediation sessions and so on. And so I found myself with this incredible experience with a lot of values. It was all inside my head, inside my computer. It was difficult to use also for me because I had the scripts, but I always needed to remember what to do with the scripts and so on. So this is why a solution like ZHERO was born. At some point, I decided, why not create a product that will put everything I know and everything I did available in the place where the most I need it, in the Zscaler administrator console. ZHERO is a browser extension that enhances the Zscaler console, and it does it in 4 ways. One, it enhances visibility. It's a lot of information directly your mouse pointer. On the other side, it analyzes your configuration against all the accumulated best practices and checks if you're following it and suggests eventual solutions if you're not. It lets make you changes to the configuration. This change ends up in a pending changes machine with which will show you all the changes you're making before you will actually apply them to Zscaler. And last but not least, it adds some advanced reporting features to Zscaler that are really, really useful for administrators to do some analysis and remediation. See what ZHERO does directly on the Zscaler console. This is my favorite screen, the SSL inspection screen, because here I can show you most of the enhancement that ZHERO does. So here on the right side, on the action, you can see that we are changing the color of these action policies based on how much they differ from the Zscaler best practices. So different levels based on severity. When you look at the criteria, you've used a comma-separated list of the cloud application, URL categories, and all the others. Here, we are showing you already much more information. For instance, let's look at Dropbox. Beside Dropbox, you can see that badge with the number 5. This means that Dropbox is used as a criteria in 5 active policies all around Zscaler. But you want to know more? You just need to hover on the entity and you will see that it will give us much more information. So which are those 5 policies in which Dropbox is used? You can see there are 2 SSL inspection policies, one cloud app rule, 1 file type rule, 1 DLP rule. And you also can see the order of that policy and also the main action of that policy. So in these cases, for the SSL inspection, it's do not inspect. This is an allow, this is a block, and this is an allow. Also, it is integrated with some of the Zscaler APIs and some really useful functions that usually are really hidden in the depth of the Zscaler console. Like in this case, you can fetch which category it pertains to, if it's sanctioned inside your tenant, and the risk index Zscaler gives. This information, for instance, it's really hard to find in the console, but it's also really, really useful. So besides seeing this information, you can also change the sanction status right here and right now. To do this, otherwise, I would have to go here to administration, then go to cloud applications and look for Dropbox over. And here I could have changed from sanctioned to unsanctioned. You can see the difference. But let's get back to the SSL inspections. So that was an example for the cloud application. For the URL categories, you can see here there are already more differences. Like you can see the numbers here. These numbers are the numbers of retaining URLs, of retaining URLs, of keywords and IP addresses. The knowledge of how many URLs are in the URL category right here without going to the other screen and look for that. And also, if I hover on the category, I can see again on how many policies it's included, a summary of all the URLs of that policy, of that URL category. So you can see here there are some numbers that are not shown. We are also using the Web Insights to fetch the last 30-day traffic generated by cloud application, URL categories, and locations. So let's see, for instance, let's go back to Dropbox. This is a tenant that we use only for demo, so there will be almost no traffic generated, but I will show you how to fetch it. So as you can see here, there is the menu, fetch web traffic for 30 days, and it will go to the Web Insight and see the last 30 days traffic for the Dropbox cloud application, which is below. And as you can imagine, this is incredibly useful for troubleshooting because it let me understand if cloud application, a URL category allocation, and at the end, a hold rule is used or not. For instance, I can do this for the whole SSL exception policy. I go here and I can say fetch related traffic 30 days. Click on it. You will see here ZHERO will make some calls to the Web Insights, like if you're going there and making the searches by yourself. But of course, this way it's much, much faster. And you can see in a few seconds, we have all the Web Insights for the traffic for the last 30 days for this cloud application and this URL categories. Amazing. But let's go even deeper. So let's say we are analyzing this policy and we are seeing Dropbox like before. Usually when we are here, knowing that Dropbox sits in 5 policies is already amazing. But probably now we have to drill down and know what's really happening in those 5 policies. So what I can do, it's actually click on Dropbox and this drawer will open on the right side with all the information I was seeing before, some more information in that. So you can see that we have this new icon, which is a D that stands for direct, which means that these are the policies where Dropbox it's directly used as a criteria. But what happens if I click on it? ZHERO will show me all the policies where Dropbox is indirectly used in the policies, because in that policies we have any as a criteria for the cloud applications. From the third policy in the SSL inspection, the icon is grayed out. This means that the policy is actually unreachable. Unreachable means that the policy before that is a catch-all for the Dropbox cloud applications. And so this means that doesn't matter if Dropbox is also used in policies below. Like for instance, in the 13 policy, it's used directly. The 13 policy from a Dropbox point of view will never be reached because we have a catch-all policy before. So this is already some incredible insights. What else we can do here? Hover on the policies and they pop up with all the informations we've seen before. What we can do is also click on them. So allow Dropbox, click on it, and the new drawer will open on the side and show me all the settings of this new policy. So here I can see that we are allowing Dropbox, but we are doing it only for one user, me in this case. Some other policies, I can go here to the SSL exception. You can see all the URL categories. For instance, the URL categories have some really nice feature when you open them in a drawer. Open this one, which is bigger. You can see here that I also have the list of all the URLs, and this list is searchable and filterable. So I see it. Tesla URL. If I Tesla, I can see that there are 2 URLs relative to Tesla. It's a lookup. So if I'm asking myself what this solibri.com is pertaining to, usually what I need to do would be through the interface, go here, do a URL lookup, and write down solibri.com lookup, and it tells me, okay, it's a professional services. Or if I want to know, like, I don't know, iCloud thumb, it will tell me it's a file host, but it will tell me also it's a file sharing cloud application, iCloud. So what's happening here? I have the URL lookup already done for all my URLs. This is because I also configured in ZHERO the APIs. ZHERO will automatically do all the URL lookups for all the URLs I have in my configuration. iCloud.com, it says to me that it's a file host and it's an iCloud. And it's saying to me that SSL append, it's used in 3 policies, these 3 that we are seeing here. But if I look at the URLs, it says to me that iCloud, it's actually referred in 12 policies. Why? Because 3 policies are the ones we are using here with SSL append. But then again, iCloud, it's also a file host in the file host. So all the policies, all the 8 policies that I have in my configuration with file host category are here. And I can click here, drill down, and see all the policies in Snap. And those, I have one policy with the iCloud, because where I have allowed Dropbox, I don't have only allowed Dropbox, but I have more file sharing application, which is actually common. I see that in a lot of customers. The rule title says one thing, then you open the rule and you have a lot of more things. So if you think about it, I never moved from the SSL inspection screen, and I'm actually looking at cloud app rules and other rules, all because I just went to the SSL append category and discovered that iCloud.com, it's used in a lot of other places. This is, I think, amazing. Also, working on URL categories and URLs, it's one of the main jobs that you can do to clean up rules and make them better. So what we did, I already showed you, we have search filters here, but you can also search and filter for category. So let's say here I will put file host, and it will show me that I actually have 2 different URLs pertaining to file host and actually iCloud. And also what I can do is to select some of these URLs, or maybe let's say I want to select them all, and I can copy them to the clipboard, which then let me paste this list maybe in some other tools so I can clean them up. And what I can do then, I can also come back here and let's say have the list from before, but not of all the URLs, just maybe a few of those, 3, 4 of those. And I can select the matches, and what it will do, it will select for me just the 4 URLs that I pasted before. Why is this useful? Because now I can maybe do the lookup, but I already have it because I have configured API. But I can also edit or copy or move these URLs. Like, let's say these URLs, I don't want them in this category. I want to move them to a new category. Let's call it test just now, and I can decide if I want to keep them as URL retain as they are, but maybe let's say no, I want to improve it and transform them to URL no retain, and I can confirm, and it will create me a new category with those 4 URLs. And because I moved them, they will be removed from the current URL. This is actually great because it let me introduce you another great feature of ZHERO, which is the pending change engine. So what actually happened is that now ZHERO is aware of these changes I want to make, but these changes are all in my browser memory in ZHERO and are not applied to ZIA. And ZHERO will keep these changes in the interface, and it will tell me that this URL category is modified, and it will show me this modified category all around the interface of Zscaler. So for instance, if now I go to the URL categories page, I can see here, if I go down, that SSL Apple Pint, it's with a different color. It will say to me that it's updated and 4 URLs are removed. I can see which are those. But Zscaler, it's not yet aware of these changes. Actually, I would be able to make these changes also if I had just read-only permissions on the tenant, because all of these changes are actually just kept here in ZHERO pending change engine. And these are actually 2 changes, because what I'm doing, it's removing 4 URLs from this category and creating this new category with these 4 new URLs, and also moving them from retaining parent URL to not retaining parent URL. And with this changing engine, I can see all the changes here. I can decide to execute just one of these. I can eventually change the order of these changes that I want to apply, execute them all, or in this case, just clear them all, and it will everything go back as it never happened, because actually we never committed this change to Zscaler. I think this is amazing because it's let you play with possible changes and let you work on the policies without being afraid to break them. You will be able to see all the changes at the end and maybe go back on some, maybe take a screenshot of the changes and bring them to your colleague. We're also planning export changes feature later on. That's it. This is for the pending changes engine. Now let's see our next great feature, which is still in the user interface enhancement. It's the search engine. You can find the search engine here in the ZHERO menu or by pressing Ctrl or Command key. And what happens is that this box will open with the search engine, and here I can literally look for anything about the Zscaler configuration. Let's, for instance, type the word test, because I know that I have a lot of things called test in this Dynamo tenant. It will look through all the configuration and show me really almost instantly URL categories. I have 2 of them with the word test inside. Will show me a source IP group, 2 destination IP groups. I have 16 URLs defined in my configuration that has test inside them. I have 2 user groups, 4 SSL inspection policies, 1 URL filtering policies, 2 firewall rules, 1 IPS rules, 2 forwarding profiles, 2 forwarding rules, a DLP rule, 1 bug file. And what we're doing with the APIs is that we are actually fetching both the upper files and the forwarding profiles. So here you can see that I have also 4 upper files, 1 forwarding profiles, and then is looking for all the cloud applications, not just the ones that I'm using in the configuration, but also the ones I'm not using. So you can see here I have 107 cloud applications, and it says to me that they are not used, but I can click and hold to analyze them anyway. So if I click and hold, it will make testable hoverable, and it will be able to fetch the information about the cloud application. So in this way, I will know that testable.io is a business productivity tool with risk index 4. This is amazing because when I'm troubleshooting the configuration with a customer, many times happen that, you're working on the interface on something else, and then somebody comes and says, okay, we have a problem. The user is not able to reach, again, let's say this website example 02.com. So you come here, and in an instant, you will know if example.02.com it's used or not inside your configuration. And as you can see here, let's say we actually have 3 different URL defined inside our configuration. One it's the simple domain, one it's a subdomain, and one it's a wildcard. So let's start from the subdomain. If I click on it, I can do a drill down. And what's nice about ZHERO is that it knows that we have a related URL. We have a wildcard that encompasses also the subdomain. So if I want, I can go here and it will show me which policies this wildcard is used in. But let's go to and have a look at the wildcard. If I have a look at the wildcard, it will tell me that it has two related URLs, because in these cases, the subdomain is related to the wildcard, but also the full domain, the simple domain, is related to the wildcard. And in the meantime, it also will look up for me. It will tell me a mix of the Zscaler categories, which is miscellaneous or unknown in this case, and the mix of my categories, which is its isolation test, are two of these categories. It's that, for instance, ZHERO, it's not analyzing the URLs only in the URL categories, but it's analyzing these URLs everywhere. Let's see, for instance, example 02.com, it's used in these two URL categories. It's used in these two destination groups. It's actually references as a VPN gateway in this upper file, and it's configured as an authentication bypass in the advanced settings, and it's used in the FTP settings. And it's also used directly as an FQDN in this firewall rule. So the insight that it's providing me, wow, it's really, really amazing. Last but not least, I can use the search engine everywhere in the console. So for instance, let's go to the Web Insights and let's look at the logs for the current month. As I mentioned, this tenant, it's not really used, so let's hope to have some logs. And here we have some logs. So the really nice thing about the search engine is that I can actually come here and select URL and then press Command K, and she will immediately look up for that URL, which is not used inside my policies. I can click and hold, it will analyze it, and I can go here and say, do a URL lookup, and now it will say it's in operating system and software updates, which actually are used in your filtering policies. So I can drill down and I can see that URL that apparently it's not used directly in any policy, it's actually referenced in two policies because I have these two URLs using it. And if I want, I can look at any, and in this way it will tell me, actually for that URL, I have potentially some firewall rules working also, because all the firewall rules are not specifying any specific URL. And so maybe it's blocked by quick or blocked if I am in for this network service. But again, I didn't move from the Web Insights log pages, and I was able to do an amazing drill down to understand an unknown URL. How is it configured inside my policies? This is the power of the search engine in ZHERO. And now let's go to the next amazing feature. As I mentioned at the beginning, we distilled 8 years of knowledge and best practices inside ZHERO. And to do that, we created an analysis engine, which you can find here and always in the menu, which actually analyzes all the configuration of ZIA and looks for gaps in compared to the best practices or improvements that you can do in the configuration. These analyses are actually done in 5 different categories, which is best practices, compliance, intelligence, because it plays maybe on log data optimization, and security posture. And all the analyses are divided in different level of severity, starting from critical down to just an information. And they are filtered based on the page you're on. So now we are seeing only the SSL inspection policies, but I can remove the filter and I will see all the analysis that ZHERO has done in this tenant. And as you can see, for instance, this is one of my favorites, because it actually happened with a customer that I found out that they had a bypass of the SSL inspection for a CDN wildcard domain. Really big hole in my security, because anybody could upload some malware on a CDN. So this is a really incredible insight, and it's also really incredibly difficult to find it, because let's say in this tenant, 113 URLs in these categories that are excluded from SSL inspection, but in real customer tenants, I have usually thousands of URLs in the SSL exception. And to know which one of them is a CDN and to find it as a wildcard, it's really not easy. First of all, because you don't know which categories the URLs are in. So I knew the names of a few CDNs, but I didn't know the name of this one, for instance. And so for all of these policies, I will have the analysis, I will have the severity score, the severity level, and I have this box that will show me information and eventually propose some changes. So in these cases, it just shows to me that this is bad and I should do something. In other cases, like this one, it suggests me to adhere to some malware protection best practices. And if I click here, it will tell me that, oh, look, you're not inspecting FTP traffic. It's a change that you should do. It's already showing me here the diff. I can then apply the change and the change will be sent to the pending queue that we saw before. It's saying you're not inspecting SSL. Pretend that the SSL inspection TLS version should be 1.2 and not 1.0 because it's fully obsolete. So again, I can apply the change if I want. Then let's see some other changes. It's of lower level. So in these cases, for instance, it's showing to me that I have a potential useless SSL inspection policy. Why is that? It will say to me that I have all these criteria in this policy, but they're all reachable because I have a previous policy that is a catch-all for all of these criteria. So I can probably delete this policy if I want. And I can, again, apply the change. And then I have some, for instance, low-level templates that are about best practices. And it says to me that I could enable block unscannable files and block password protected files. It's actually good from a security point of view, but it causes some problems with the user experience. And it's explaining all of that here. Then again, this, for instance, it's just an optimization. So it says to me that in this URL category, I have defined these two URLs, but this one, it's a specific subdomain of this one that it's already defined there. So I could, if I wish, read the specific URL. So it proposes me the change where I can remove this one. And if I want, again, I can apply it. I can have an instant idea of the quality of the configuration of my tenant. And I will be able also to have in-depth insights. And I will be also able to fix some of the problems immediately, or maybe have all the information I need to decide if I would want to take action on that or not. Just so you know, all these analysis templates are continuously growing. We're adding them each month, depending on new best practices that we know of, and new experiences that we have with customers, and so on. Let's now see one of the last features, which are the advanced data reports. The ZIA console, it's already amazing. And we have some reports and dashboard and insights here. But sometimes when you really have to work with policies and optimizations, you need to extract some data that it's not immediately available on the interface. So for instance, here in the SSL inspection page, we added two insights. One that shows the SSL inspection rate coming from the security policy audit report and security policy audit report, SSL inspection. Click on here, and variably because it's 0, it's not showing it to me, but usually here it's showing the rate of the SSL inspection of my tenant. But as you can see, it's not that easy to find, and I needed to move specifically to this page, while with 0 we're showing it right there. So this SSL inspection rate, it's not based on the data that you really want to look at. And from our experience, it's actually using a different equation to calculate the effective SSL inspection rate. So with that knowledge, we built this report that will go again on Web Insights and fetch the traffic from different types of segments, the one of Office 365 and so on. And we tell you qualified SSL inspection rate, which is the actual one that also Zscaler is using when it's doing the QBRs. A chart of the last 30 days of the SSL inspection rate. As I mentioned, this is just a demo app that we are using seldom, but in a real case, here you will be able to see the trends of the SSL inspection in the last month, which is really useful to SSL inspection, it's set up right or not. Then we have these other reports. One is a report of URLs, which is really useful because I can have an Excel with all the URLs of my tenant in the same sheet, and then I will have all these columns with like the URL categories of which these URLs pertain to, the custom ones, but also the looked up ones. So which Zscaler URL categories they pertain to. And then I will have also the list of all the other places where a URL can be used inside Zscaler, ZIA. And I will have this insight available for me all in one sheet. And I will be able to give also this Excel sheet to somebody else, maybe who is not a Zscaler administrator. So this is really, really useful. I will be able to make cleanup of my URLs, know more about my URLs, and also share this information with others. The next report is about the locations. This is also really incredibly useful when you want to do cleanup and maintenance of the locations. I have customers that have hundreds of locations and sub-locations, and usually they're not really well maintained because maybe some location ceased to exist, some other location changes the public IP address, and you lose track of which locations are actually in use and active and which are not. And then maybe you have policies with these locations. It can become a mess. Also, locations are not really that user-friendly to navigate through them in the interface, because if you go to the locations, you can see just the locations and not the sub-locations. And to open the sub-locations, you need to click on this other button, but you can do only for one location at a time. So, if you have 100 locations with 5 sub-locations each, it's impossible to have a complete look of them. But with this export, you can do it. You can have an Excel sheet with all the location with inside all the sub-locations. And not only, we can add some columns with the traffic that these locations did in the last 30 days. So you would be able to know if they are actually active or not. And you can also add the number of the impacted policies or where that location is used as a criteria. Again, really useful. You can download this and send it to the network IT manager of the company, which doesn't have access to Zscaler, but with Excel, he can look at the locations and tell which ones change the IP address or whatever. Then to continue, this is also incredibly useful. This is a report that usually took me 1 day to build it. It's about back files, upper files, and forwarding profiles. People tend to accumulate them, and then usually have dozens of upper files and more than dozens of forwarding profiles and a lot of back files. And to know which one is actually used or not, it's not that easy. With this export, we are creating an Excel file with three sheets, one for the upper files, showing each upper files which forwarding profile it's using and which back file it's using, one for forwarding profiles, showing each forwarding profiles which back file it's using, and also if it's referenced from an active upper file or not, and also the list of the back files and showing if it's referenced from an upper file or a forwarding profiles. So in a matter of seconds, I can have a report that it's showing me really useful information. And at the end, we have also a firewall rule export, which will create an Excel with all the firewall rules and a lot of columns with all the criteria. So it will also be filterable and sortable in Excel. And again here, because we can retrieve this information, we can add these 2 columns with the traffic that hits that specific firewall rule in the last 30 days, which when you have hundreds of firewall rules, it's incredibly amazing because it will let you know which one are used and which one are actually useless. And you can do a lot of PIP and improvement of the configuration really right away. So this is everything for now. Let me just add from some information from a security point of view. So ZHERO, it's a browser extension, and all the analysis and all of the information are done and kept inside your browser. No configuration information is ever sent to our servers. We just send some information about your user, the administrator, and the tenant name for licensing purposes. In the future, we'll probably have some feature that will enable you to send some data to our servers, but they will be all opt-in features. You will be able to choose if you want to use them or not. Also, ZHERO is in active development, so we have exciting features coming out often. In the roadmap, we have a really cool feature that we are calling W Engine, which is an engine where you will be able to select a user, select a URL, and it will analyze all your policies and telling you which policies are that person reach or block in the reach of the URL you were looking for. And this feature will also be incredibly useful for troubleshooting because it will be able to look up the log of the last 24 hours and look at the instances where that user went to that URL. And what we want to do is that you will be probably able also to upload a HIR for the user session, and ZHERO will analyze that file and based on that look at what policies are hit by the user and maybe suggest you some improvement or some configuration. Also, in the future, we plan to create an AI assistant. Will you be then able to chat with ZHERO and ask for suggestions and configuration? For now, it's only for ZIA. In the future, will be also for ZPA and it's next door, so it will work in the experience center. And then for the future, we are planning also some team collaboration feature to let administrators collaborate between them. So that's really it. Please feel free to go to the website. You can find it here in the profile. You can schedule a demo and also ask for a free trial to test ZHERO by yourself. Last but not least, there is also a free version of ZHERO. You can just set up it in your browser. You will find the instruction always on the website. And it has some basic but already amazing features, so you can start with that. Thank you for watching and find all the contact information here on this page. Thank you. Bye-bye.